Homer led the league in tackles with 85. The deep ball for Darius Prince, and Philadelphia's on the board first.
On the draw, this is Bryson Allen. And Allen weaving his way all the way down to the 22.
10-yard line, 5. Mayfield, dancing all around. Throw it as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver, you're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
Good morning, sports fans, and welcome to another episode on Shady Sports Network. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Anthony Blevins, better known as the man who was hired to run the Vegas Vipers for the 2024 season before the UFL merger. He's also spent a very long time in the NFL, coaching special teams, defensive backs, linebackers, all kinds of different positions. So we're going to get into his career today and learn a little bit more about him and see what's next in store for Coach Blevins. Coach, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I almost missed it, man. I forgot about the time forward, the spring forward. So, but I'm good.
Well, to be completely honest, I guess that makes two of us. I honestly was just running a mile a minute this morning and had totally spaced it out, and then you got back to me, and I'm like, oh man, I got to go get set up. I got to get have everything ready to go, and we'll see if we can still get this knocked out. So I really appreciate you taking the time out and coming on this morning. I know it's very early.
No, you're welcome, man. I appreciate the invite, and I look forward to talking. And I see you're an Eagles fan. I assume you're an Eagles fan. I see all the Eagles gear in the back. I know you have. So we got something to talk about there,
Oh yeah, are you an Eagles fan as well?
No, I was with the Giants for 5 years, so you got that heated rivalry from New York to Philly, So yeah,
That's very true. So definitely have lots to talk about, and including where I really wanted to start was your playing career. What we cover a lot here on this network, as I haven't really discussed with you, is alternative football. So when I was looking back at your playing career, it was very interesting to see that you played in the AF2, the Regional Football League, and then the first year of the XFL, which I thought was amazing. I remember watching the XFL on TV back in 2001, and it was just a unique experience back then. So I wanted to get your insight on all these different leagues you kind of played in. But you started with the Mobile Admirals from the Regional Pro Football League. What was that experience like? And can you kind of walk us through how that league came about?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't really remember how the league came about. I just know I got a phone call, and it's like, hey, you want to play, and it was down in Mobile. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. So Mobile's about three and a half hours from there, and so went down there. We had a great time. There's a lot of good coaches in that league. Lance Anderson, who was the defensive coordinator at Stanford, or was, with David Shaw, James West, who's in the CFL Hall of Fame, up in Winnipeg, played in Winnipeg. Tiger Green, who played in Green Bay, played in the league a bunch of years. We had a bunch of great coaches. And we had a great time. A lot of former NFL players, Sherman Williams being one. Played with the Cowboys. He was on that team. Kevin Lee, who played with the Patriots, he was on that team as well. We had a lot of NFL talent on that team, and we actually won the championship down there. We had a great time. Living in Mobile. We had an unbelievable time, and those were times I won't forget, because it was, those times, it's like you're just trying to get it. You're just trying to get opportunity. And that's what this kind of the XFL, kind of reminds me of. It just kind of getting the opportunity and and for everybody, for coaches, for players, for everybody involved. It's an opportunity. And that's what I looked at it from, leaving the NFL, the New York Giants, taking the Vipers head job at that particular point in time. It was an opportunity to show people that I could run a team, that I could be a head coach. So I didn't look at it as, as necessarily alternative football. I looked at it as an opportunity.
I really love that thought process there. I mean, like I said, we cover a lot of these different leagues, the indoor leagues, the UFL, the all the different overseas leagues as well. So I mean, we're constantly kind of focused on the opportunities that are at hand with all these different leagues, and as you've seen firsthand on several occasions, I'm sure these leagues can get guys back to the NFL, and there's a big reason why they exist. To help development, because playing time is sparse in the NFL. So. Moving on to your second year, you stayed in Alabama. You dipped a toe into the arena game and played with the Alabama Steel Dogs. I'm curious, what was your experience like for the first time in arena football?
Well, I played under actually Bobby Humphrey. I see the Denver flag, so Bobby's kind of a Denver legend running back, and Bobby's still a good friend to this day. But the arena ball was different. It was a completely different game from what I was used to. It was the motion, the loop around motion, the run back, come forward. Had a Canadian type feel to it in some ways. It was fast paced. It was smaller. The game itself is a fun game. It's like basketball on grass almost, because it's up and down, up and down. Games end up, as 60 to 55, those type of games, where if you play defense, which, everybody did kind of, play both ways. When I first got in the league, I played defensive specialist. So I only played one way. I didn't play both ways. You have, you work on receiver stuff, but I played defensive specialist. So I was a guy always encouraged, always kind of on an island. And, it was different. It was really different game, but it was fun. It was really fun. Played in front of great crowds. It was really an amazing year playing that year. Got places I'd never been. Quad City, Iowa. Places like that. We had a great time. Everything was done first class. With Bobby. Bobby did it right. Bobby's a good man. Did it right, treated us right. The city treated us right. And it's always fun when you play in front of your home crowd too. I was from Birmingham, and it's always fun when your parents can come out and come to all the home games, and they don't have to travel far. It was fun. I really enjoyed it, but it was a different game. It was harder in a lot of ways. It was harder. And that defensive back mentality, next play mentality, you had to have it in that league,
That's interesting. It's interesting to hear your take on that, given the fact that you've coached at every level essentially. So you've seen it from every angle, so to speak. But moving on to your third and I guess final year playing, you were with the original iteration of the XFL with the Birmingham Thunderbolts. Kind of cool how you got to play your whole career there in Alabama, where you're from. So what was the XFL like? I mean, I know back then it was a little bit more geared toward the wrestling fan. There was the scrum at the beginning rather than the kickoff. What did you think about that league after your experience in the Arena League?
I mean, it was another league I enjoyed. It was different because of the media aspect of it. Kind of, as you alluded to, the wrestling and you make a play, you make an interception. As soon as you come off the field, somebody's in your face with a microphone. What were you thinking there? What were you doing there? And it was for show. It was for fans, and it was the access. That's what made that league different. The fan access, and at the time, at that league was Vince McMahon, and it was the showmanship. This is the XFL. It was all of that. But the football was good. It was guys that had been at NFL camps. been on NFL rosters. I mean, it was really a good time playing there. It really was. Jerry DiNardo was our head coach, who had been at Vanderbilt, LSU. We had a lot of quality coaching in that league, a lot of quality, players, and that was all across the board. A lot of those players went on to play in the NFL, made really good careers in the NFL, from that league, from that opportunity. And, I really, another league I really enjoyed. Anytime you get a chance to play football and you get a chance to coach football, that's what it's really all about, And it doesn't matter where it's at, doesn't matter the league is in, is the fact that you got an opportunity and somebody saw something in you to give you a chance to go out and continue your career in whatever aspect it is. So I think that's the most important part of it, But I really enjoyed all of the steps in my career, up to this point, and just from the opportunity that people gave me. Somebody believed in me to give me an opportunity, and I was determined. I've always been determined. I'm not going to let that person down, whoever it was. First of all, I believe in myself, wholeheartedly. But whoever gave me an opportunity, I was determined not to let them down.
I love that mentality. That's a great way to look at things. I actually view things very similar, although I am not an athlete and do not play football. So, definitely kind of try to pay back those that have helped you along the way, and try to make sure that it ends up meaning something, and mattering. So I like that a lot. So you end up transitioning to coaching. How did that transition look for you? Was it a situation where you always knew you would eventually end up a coach, or is it a situation where your playing career kind of came to an end, and that was your way to stay close to football?
To be honest with you, I never really thought about coaching. So a couple people, kind of pushed me in this area. So I mentioned James West earlier. Played in Winnipeg, played in the CFL. Who coached? He was coaching D-line or linebackers in the RFL, Regional Football League. And he's the one that always said, "Hey, you're going to be a coach. I'm going to, like, you should be a coach. You got this, you're smart, you communicate well, all of this type stuff." He's like, "You should be a coach." And then after that season, like most leagues, you only get paid for the season. So you're trying to figure out, and it's not the NFL, so you're not making millions of dollars where you can sustain yourself till the next season. So he just, after the season, I'm back in Birmingham, and he calls me. He takes a job at Alabama State University down in Montgomery, which is probably from Birmingham. It's probably an hour, hour and a half drive. And he was like, "Hey, they're looking for a DB coach, man. Are you interested?" I was like, I don't know if I am or not, to be honest with you. But I was like, you know what? He was, he kind of talked me into it a little bit. And then there's another guy, George Pugh. George, I played for him at UAB, and he knew those guys down there at Alabama State, and I kind of called him, talked to him about it, and he was all in on it. He was like, "Man, go do it, go do it." He talks like this, go do it, and and George, between those two kind of pushed me down there, and it ended up being a great time. So Ron Dickerson was the head coach. Ron Dickerson Sr. was the head coach, who's a Temple, Philadelphia guy up that way. And he was the head coach. Ron McCrone, who's since passed away, was the defensive coordinator. And it was good. It was the first opportunity to coach. I enjoyed it. Some of those players on that team, on that original team, were people I still, somewhat communicate with today. So, that was my first taste of coaching, and it was different. I enjoyed it, but it was a different aspect of the game that I'd never really seen. The late nights, the early mornings, the staff meetings, that's the stuff I didn't see as a player. And it just, I'm not going to say like I was at that point, I was all in on coaching. It was just something to do at that particular point in time. And to be honest with you, after that, I got out of coaching for a couple of years,
you know, I was like, man, this ain't for me, man. Like, man, you guys work too much, man. You know, and I got off for a couple of years, and then, you know, ironically, the guy, so in the XFL, I tore my knee up, so that was the last time I really played any type of professional football or alternative football, whatever. That was the last time I played. But rehabbing my knee, I ended up, you know, trying to get back in and had some workouts. And so Coach Pugh, George Pugh, he coached me in college, but he left UAB to go to the University of Arkansas. So I go to this workout, meet some guys from the University of Arkansas. We started talking about him. You know, where's George? You know, somebody said he's here. Somebody said he's in Dallas. Somebody, you know, he's just all over the place. So I get his number and finally call him, and he's in Atlanta. And at that time, I'm living in Atlanta as well. And he wants me to coach high school football for him. You know, he takes a head job at Middle Creek High School up in Gwinnett, Georgia, and Gwinnett County, Georgia. And he's like, man, come over here and coach with me. Come coach with me. Hey, you know, we have a good time. We put a good staff together, all that stuff. And I was like, man, I don't GP, nope. So eventually I ended up going, you know, he talks me into going to lunch with him one day and come by the high school to visit. And you know, we have a great, you know, visit, catching up. You know, I hadn't talked to him in a while and seen him in a while. And then, so about 3:00 in the afternoon, you know, it's the summertime, and his kids start coming in to work out, you know, and it's like him and one other guy, the strength coach. That's the only guys I hired. You know, it's like 40 kids in there, like 2 people. And I was like, well, you know, like, you've done a lot for me. I'll help you out in the afternoon, you know, until you can get your staff hired. And did it for about 2 weeks. And like, that's when I really kind of fell in love with the other side of football. It was easy to fall in love with it as a player, but as far as the relationships, the coaching, that aspect of it, that was the first time I really like fell in love with it, and went to him and asked him if the offer was still there. You know, I'd love to do it. And he's like, man, you know, so he got me situated with taking, you know, the teacher's test to practice in Georgia so I could teach. You know, that's how you get paid, basically teaching. You know, so I did that, and I did that, coached high school ball for 2 years, and then I ended up at Mississippi State University as a grad assistant there. So yeah.
That's an amazing story. I mean, it's always kind of interesting to hear how those transitions happen for former players that end up in coaching, because honestly, every story is a little bit different, it seems like. But it is kind of interesting to hear that you didn't anticipate yourself coaching at first, and here you are, you know, basically making it to the highest level, you know, as of last year. So let's go ahead and fast forward a little bit. In 2012, you end up getting to coach at UAB, which is your alma mater. What was that opportunity like for you, and how did that all come about after a few years of coaching?
You know what? Coaching at UAB was good. It was good. It was, but it was a lot of pressure in a lot of ways. Because now you're coaching back in your hometown. You got relationships. People are looking at you as, you know, as the guy, or, you know, I wasn't a head coach, but, you know, people recognize you around town, you know, so you go to a restaurant, you know, people recognize you. It's not like you can't come in from a different city and people have no clue who you are. You know, when I got there, it was all types of news article, you know, coming home and, you know, homecoming, you know, all that type stuff. So it was a lot of pressure in a lot of ways. And that first year we wasn't very good, but so Garrett McGee's the head coach, and I don't know Garrett at this particular point in time. And so I'm at Tennessee State coaching, and Birmingham or Alabama was my recruiting area. So, you know, I started hitting some of my people, like, hey, he gets the job, when's the press conference, you know, I'm, you know, whatever. So I drive down from Nashville, which is about a 3-hour drive, drive down early, go to the press conference, and I'm sitting there and I'm just waiting for an opportunity to talk to him, you know. So finally, you know, he gets a minute, I go up and introduce myself to him, and he kind of knows all this stuff about me, you know, already, you know. And we end up talking, so, hey, I'm gonna call you later, and, you know, I'm gonna call you in a couple of days. Hey, let's talk, you know, and like, you know, fine. And so he does. About a week goes by, you know, a little less than a week goes by. I think that's Monday. The press conference is like on Monday or Tuesday or something like that. He calls me the next Sunday. he was like, when are you going to be in town again? Or when can we talk or something like that? Well, I was like, well, I'm going to be in Alabama recruiting like on Wednesday. And he was like, can you stop by on Wednesday? I was like, yeah, I can stop by, in the afternoon. I got to, finish recruiting and all that type of stuff. He was like, fine. And so Tuesday night, I called him to kind of confirm time, all that. He doesn't respond back Tuesday night, but Wednesday morning, he texts me. It's a text. And he basically offers me the job over text. He's like, hey, I know about you. I've done my research on you. I want you to come coach my corners. Is that something you'd be interested in? It's like heck yeah, so that's really how it worked out. It's like, I had to sit on it for a couple of weeks. You got to do the background check and all that type of stuff. So I had to sit on it for a couple of weeks, but that's how I ended up at UAB, back in 2012. So because it was my first D1 school. I've been at Tennessee State, UT Martin. Well, I was at Mississippi State, but I was there as a grad assistant. So, I count that, but I don't count that, because it was great times. And to be honest with you, at Mississippi State, I learned so much, being a young coach. I learned so much. I was there with Sylvester Croom, first, African-American head coach in the SEC. And he was such a trailblazer, forward thinker, from his experience, and just listening to how he addressed the room and talked, how he thought about football and the staff that he hired and put together. It was as I look back on it, I probably didn't appreciate it as much at the time, because like when you're in a moment, you're all over the place. You're here, you're just all over the place. But as you sit back and you reflect on those times, it was so much information there. And a lot of it I still use today, to be honest with you.
That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Honestly, it seems like most coaches always kind of go back to their early years to pull on those experiences. But you got into coaching in, I believe, 2003, if I'm correct. And by 2013, you get your first opportunity at the NFL level. I mean, after just getting your first opportunity at the D1 level as a position coach, you immediately jumped to the NFL. How did that work out exactly? I mean, had you met Bruce Arians somewhere along the way prior to that?
Well, I had met Bruce. So Bruce's son Jake played with me at UAB. He was a kicker. I was a couple of years older than Jake, but so I met him. But like Bruce was not like he wasn't on the speed dial. But I knew who he was. He knew who I was. But really, the catalyst for Mississippi State was a guy, Amos Jones. So Amos was a guy. He's been with Bruce a lot. He was at Alabama. Played at Alabama, coached at Alabama, and he was a grad assistant for Alabama under Bruce Arians when Bruce was there. Bear Bryant's last year. Bear Bryant's last couple of years there, he was offensive coordinator, and Bruce gets the Temple job. Speaking of Temple again, Philadelphia. He gets the head job at Temple, and he takes Amos with him. And so Amos was actually at Mississippi State when I was there as a grad assistant, and great guy and was a man of his word. So he leaves Mississippi State and goes to Pittsburgh with the Steelers. He goes up there, assistant special teams coach. He's up there maybe 6 or 7 years, and he always said, "Hey, if I get a chance, I'm gonna bring you wherever, And so after Bruce gets the job in Arizona, Amos goes with him, and true enough, Amos brings me in as his assistant, assistant special teams coach. So that's really how I broke in. It was networking, but it was also doing a good job where I was at Mississippi State at that particular point in time. And that's what I always tell especially young coaches, like, do a good job where you are. People don't notice, obviously you got to network and meet people, all that type of stuff, but just do a good job where you are and people will take notice.
I would strongly agree with that. I'm a firm believer in the same for players. Make every league your NFL, and you never know where you'll end up. So you end up spending, I think, 5 seasons with Arizona. You have a ton of success with them, and then you land with the New York Giants, which ended up being kind of a I don't want to say foundational, but a very impactful location for you. You spend several years there, hold many different titles. Have a heated rivalry with my Eagles. So, how was your opportunity with the Giants? And you originally were hired under Pat Shermer, correct?
Correct. I was hired at 18 on the Pat Shermer, and really, how that worked out. I mean, so we're in Seattle. Last game of the year, we beat Seattle in Seattle, and Bruce announces to the team in the locker room that he's retiring. That he's done. He's going to retire. So that kind of puts everybody kind of like well, on to the next one. And so a guy Thomas McGahee. So he's in Tampa now, but we work together in New York. I was his assistant in New York, and like we text. I think we text. So he's in Carolina at the time. So we're out of the playoffs, and we actually text. And I was like, "Hey man, it's gotten quiet around here. I don't know what's going on. Hey, if you hear anything, let me know. Just kind of staying in touch." And he hits me right back, and he's in Carolina. They're getting ready to play the Saints in the playoffs in the wild card round of the playoff. Hits me right back on a Saturday night. Hey, don't worry about it. I got you. You know what I mean? I'll keep you posted. Whatever. So the next day, I fly to Charlotte to go to the AFCA, which is the American Football Coaches Association. It's kind of a lot of college coaches for the most part, because the NFL guys are still playing. And get there that Sunday. Carolina plays Sunday, gets beat. And so Monday, I'm walking through kind of the convention hall, getting ready to go watch the national championship game. And this big guy comes over and leans on me, like just tackles me, And I was like, who is this big guy on me? Like, and it's T-Mac, we call him T-Mac. So, we go over to the side, we talk a little bit, and he's like, hey, if you don't have anything, I got some stuff going on. I'll keep you posted or whatever. So about 10 days later, he called me. He was like, hey, and he's selling me. He's doing his best sales job. Hey, man, we got this opportunity. We can go in there. We can change the culture. We can do this. He is selling me, man. So eventually, like, I figured out when he's talking, I was like, man, you're talking about Cleveland, man. If you go to Cleveland, I'll go with you. Long story short, and because they had just came off the 0-16 season. And I was like, man, if you go, I'm going, So at the time, I'm in San Francisco. My fiance at the time, she was in San Francisco. So I was in San Francisco all season at this particular point in time. And he calls me, or he calls me and he's like, hey, I'm in Cleveland. Like, the deal is getting done. What number do you need to make? Whatever. I was like, I told him the number. Then he was like, hey, they're going to call you tomorrow. They'll send you a contract or whatever. So long story short, about midnight West Coast time, he texts me, hey, change the plans. We're going to the Giants. I was like, hey, man, what's the deal? He's like, the deal is we're going to the Giants. I was like, man, are we going to the Giants or are you going to the Giants? Like, what's the deal? He's like, man, we going to the Giants, man. And the deal gets done, pretty much then, on that deal with the Giants. Like, they called me, a day, 2 days later. And I've been in New York, ever since then, and survived, 3 head coaches, Pat Shermer, Joe Judge, and Brian Daboll. So, just kind of, go in, keep your head down and just work, that's really, and be a good person in the building. That's really, a lot of it, just, working hard, being a good person in the building, having success with your group, whatever your group is. And that's how people take notice, So.
Great advice once again. So in 2023, obviously part of the big reason why we reached out to you, you were named as the head coach for the Vegas Vipers after Rod Woodson decided to step away. I'm very curious. Obviously, you were in a situation where you're coming fresh off an NFL contract. I'm sure you had other NFL opportunities, or had you pursued them, you could have been on an NFL roster once again. So, what ultimately made the decision for you to make that jump to the XFL and try to kind of show your way as a head coach?
Yeah. Be honest with you, I was here on vacation, me and my wife, we make Dallas home base. So I was here in Dallas and just kind of hanging out and got a random email from Mark Ross, who at the time was the executive, I guess, executive vice president of the XFL at that particular point in time. Just got a random email. Would you be interested in interviewing for an XFL head job? You know, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like, but at the same time, it's like, I ain't got nothing to lose, so why not? So, take the opportunity, interview, and the interview goes really, really well. And then it's just a string of interviews. It was, I think the first interview was Mark and Doug Whaley, who's he's here with the UFL still now. It was those two. It was Brian Westbrook, who was a director of player engagement or player development, Eagles guy. I see the smile on your face right there at that name. And then I ended up talking to Russ Brandon, who's the president, and then ended up talking to Danny Garcia, the chairwoman of the league, and everything just went smooth. All the interviews, they really, really went smooth. And next thing you know, a week later, they're offering me the job. And and at that time, I was like, I don't know if I was all in. I'd been in the XFL, and I remember how it ended in the spring, and it was like, I remember being in a bar, restaurant bar, and seeing across the bottom line, they just being bottom the ticker, XFL folds or shuts down or whatever, So I've been there and been a part of it, but I think the good outweighed the bad, and like I said, it was an opportunity for me to run my team, show people I could run a team, show people I could be successful running the team. So that's the way I looked at it. I looked at, you think about like Marv Levy, in the CFL, Mark Trestman in the CFL. There's been a bunch of guys that have had alternative paths. And I thought, just kind of looking at my career, where I was, I thought my path would probably be, some type of alternative path as well. So I was like, man, this is God dropping something in my lap, like to push me into a certain direction. I don't know where he's trying to push me or what he's trying to do, but this is where I think, something here is right about this. The people were good. Mark and Doug, I mean, they were good people. I still stay in touch with Mark. I was just with Mark last week, so it was just a great opportunity that I think was really, at that particular point in time, was too good to pass up at that particular point in time in my career.
I would completely agree. And obviously, I don't think at that particular point when you were hired, anybody foresaw what was to come for the USFL and the XFL to eventually merge. But you spoke about how you found out about the XFL folding. I'm curious how you found out about the UFL eventual merger coming about.
Well, I mean, like it was. I think the rumors probably started coming out about late September, somewhere in there, somewhere mid September, late September. And a lot of it was initially through the internet. It was through bloggers and different things like that. That was probably the initial part. And then we had a meeting. They finally called a meeting and told us, like, there's talks, and the merger's probably going to happen, but it's got to be approved by the government and things like that. And I think it was a 30-day window. They said we couldn't talk to anybody, we couldn't talk to, anybody on the USFL side then, and they couldn't talk to us. And so it was a lot of stuff that came out, but initially it was through the internet, through Twitter and, or X, whatever it is now, Instagram, all of that. That was where it first hit, and that's when it became kind of real that this thing is possible. And then you're trying to figure out what teams are in, or if it's going to be a 16-team league, a 12-team league, a 14-team league, and who's in, who's out. I mean, you're going through all these different scenarios, and so it was crazy, because you're trying to think, I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I left an NFL team for this, you know what I mean? And so I was like, man, there's, then I started trying to rationalize it in my head. There's no way my team could be out because I did this, or I did that, or I was here,
you know, and you realize it's just all business, you know. So
I can't even imagine what must have been going through your head at that time, especially given the fact that you said, I mean, you kind of gave up an NFL opportunity for this. After you found out the news that the merger would happen and that ultimately the Vipers were one of the teams that would not be included in the merger, did you have any NFL teams reach out? Were there any other opportunities at the college level or anything like that that have come up since then?
I've talked to a few teams in the NFL, and when I say a few, it's been very, very few. You know, I haven't had a whole lot of opportunities, but I have had a couple conversations with people here and there. But I haven't had, you know, the phone hasn't rung like I wish it would have, you know. So, you know, so right now I'm just kind of looking for that next opportunity and seeing what happens, uh, you know, moving forward. You know, I think, you know, I'll be all right. I don't know, you know, what happens, you know, and I don't know what's next at this particular point in time. But, you know, just trying to work, you know, network, you know, working the phones, that type of deal. You know, it's been really a weird deal, you know, and just trying to get people to call back. Some, you know, like I think there's a generation gap where people in my generation, you know, somebody calls you, you text you, you call back, you text, you know. Here it's like, okay, phone calls go unanswered, texts go unanswered. So it's a little bit, you know, different, you know, as the league gets a little bit younger. I think it's just kind of a, you know, a different mentality from the way I was taught and brought up in this game. You know, one of the first things when Bruce Arians called me about when I got the job, you know, we were talking about how the phone rings and, you know, people get text messages. And one of his things was he was like, enjoy the process, but in return, every phone call, every text, every email. And you know, this coming from Bruce Arians, two-time head coach, coach of the year, you know, and that's something I try to do. I try to return every phone call. And for some, I'm sure it's probably some that slipped through the cracks because it was a little bit overwhelming because I'd never been through that, didn't know what to expect. But I tried to return every text, every phone call. You know, I tried my best to do that.
Well, I guess I should indirectly thank Coach Arians for making this interview happen because you answered my DM when I reached out to you about this interview. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on this morning. I know that you've got some time constraints going on this morning, so I definitely don't want to hold you up too much longer. I did have one more question for you, though. Basically, what's your ultimate goal? I mean, you've accomplished so much as a coach, as a player. Here you are, you know, almost 20 years in. What's the ultimate goal for coach?
The ultimate goal is to be a head coach, you know, in the NFL, run my own program, you know, win a couple of Super Bowls. But the biggest goal, I guess, is to really impact people, you know, is use the platform to impact people, to, you know, help people realize whatever it is their goals are, to help people in their direction that they want to go in. That's really the ultimate goal. Because I think regardless of what you do, we're all in the people business. People make this thing work. People make the XFL work, the UFL work, the NFL work, see it, whatever it is. And that's what I say. We're in the people business. You know, that's really, you know, where it is. And if you can help people realize their goals, you know, their life dreams, guess what? They'll work so much harder for you in the process. But yeah, so yeah, the NFL head coach use that platform to help people along the way.
I love that thought process. And, you know, just to throw this out there, UAB, I'm sure you can use another assistant coach on the staff for this season. So definitely give Coach Blevins here a call. I know that, you know, I've got a few people over there that might be watching. So hopefully we can make that happen for you. But I appreciate your time, Coach. I really do. I mean, honestly, I wasn't sure if I'd ever really get a response from you. I mean, you're obviously a very high profile coach. You've been at the NFL level, at the college level, very, very many high level programs. So I really appreciate the opportunity for you to come on here and speak a little bit about your career and give me the time of day. And then most importantly, kind of answering all the questions. I mean, I know it's probably not the greatest memory to look back on given everything that's happened with the XFL currently, but I appreciate you coming on and offering us some insight into that situation as well.
Well, I appreciate that, and honestly, like I don't have any ill feelings or anything. I really look at it from the lens of somebody believed in me enough to give me an opportunity to be a head coach. That's the way I look at it. Like I don't, the glass, it's never half empty; it's always half full. So that, like an opportunity to be a head coach, that's what I wanted. And the opportunity came, it just didn't materialize how I thought it would. But just to have that opportunity to interview for the job, to get the job, that's still something I'll look back on favorable. So there's no ill will or anything like that toward anybody in the XFL, UFL, or anything like that. It's been a positive experience. Even with the people that are there now, the coaches, I met people that I would not have met and been in circles I would not have been in if it had not been for the opportunity to be the head coach of the Vegas Vipers.
That's a great way to look at it as well. So safe to say that if and when, as we all hope, that some of these teams come back, you would entertain the opportunity to go back there as a head coach again?
I would, yeah. Like I said, like everything was done well, and I was treated well. It just, the opportunity didn't materialize how I thought it would, and I think, how people treated me during the process. I mean, they had a lot of class, a lot of empathy. It's first class people there, and that's what makes a difference. When it's first class people, it does make a difference. So to answer your question, yeah, I would, entertain an opportunity, if it does, something does come back around at some particular point in time. Like I said, there's no ill will, ill feelings. It just happens, things happen, and you just deal with it. And a mentality that I have is, so what, now what? Okay, so this happened, now what are you going to do about it? That's my mentality in every situation. So what, now what?
I love that. That's great advice once again. So once again, Coach, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, and I wish you the best of luck in 2024 and beyond. I'm sure there's still, many, many more years of coaching to come for you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.